Mr. Hillier has moved private member's notice of motion number 93. Pursuant to Standing Order 101, the member has 12 minutes for his presentation.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I ask this House to examine and consider my motion to create a standing committee on Indigenous relations and make it a permanent fixture of this Assembly. It is without a doubt the single greatest question facing our country is our relationship with our Indigenous peoples. It is a question that has far-reaching ramifications, not just for Indigenous people, but for each and every Canadian, regardless of race, creed, or colour, regardless of one's economic or social standing, regardless if you're on the left or the right of the political spectrum or somewhere in between. It is a question that has been vexing to resolve and endless in its evolving makeup. It is a question that has led to great harm to our economy, diminished prosperity, increasing violence, and it is striking at our very understanding of the rule of law. It has shaken our constitutional foundations of peace, order, and good government. To answer this question to the satisfaction of all Canadians, whether they be Native or non-Native, will require honest, frank, and factual discussions. It will require the goodwill and good faith of good people. There are those that believe that this is a federal matter, but that would be misinformed and wrong. We, as a provincial government, have both the responsibility and the jurisdiction to build partnerships with our Indigenous communities. I want to thank and congratulate the Premier and the First Nations of Webuquet and Martin Falls for their announcements earlier this week on the Ring of Fire. It's been a long, long time coming. For 12 years, this project has sat idle and without agreement. We've lost investment, jobs, and have continued poverty. It also casts a long shadow and a chill over whether or not Ontario was a good place to invest in, whether it was a good place to create jobs, wealth, and prosperity. A standing committee on Indigenous relations can build on this progress. Progress to a better life, not only for our Indigenous peoples, but a better, more harmonious and prosperous life for everyone. Increasingly, and for far too long, this relationship between government and Native peoples has been poisoned with rhetoric and extremism, often by those attempting to hijack legitimate Native grievances to advance their own personal political agendas. Political agendas of extreme anti-capitalism and environmental zealots who are often funded by outside foreign interests. Those are not Native, those are not Canadian interests. But we have also seen these extremists who attempt to distort our history, conflate unrelated matters, and use language and words of derision and discord to create dissent. That is not how we resolve problems in Canada. Extremists who often intimidate, coerce, and use violence to oppress differing or dissenting opinions. These are not Native or Canadian values. These extreme views have also created divisions within our Native communities, as has been reported often and for many weeks. We've even seen this grand, distorted expectation that there must be unanimity for any Native community decision to be valid or justified. Unanimity is a rarity in any community, on any subject. Progress cannot ever be made if unanimity is the bar that must be achieved. Demanding unanimity on all decisions is an extreme, and only extremists call for it. Indigenous peoples have far, far more in common with Canadians than our few differences. Yet there are those who attempt to exploit these small differences and overlook our common goals, values, and aspirations. Extremism is not the Canadian way, it's not the Native way, and it's not the way forward, only backwards. Speaker, I could share some of the elements of this extreme language that we've heard in social media and whatnot, but I think people have seen it and understand it. I don't believe anybody in this House would align themselves with those comments. But we must act together to temper this growing rise of intemperate, coarse invective that has entered the lexicon and the public square. There will be no progress while ideas and discourse in these veins are given purchase in the debate. These extreme views by extreme organizations must be and can be mitigated by using this institution and its committees to engage and examine the challenges and the difficulties through a thoughtful lens and with sincere deliberations. However, for this committee to work and for it to work well, we must also first lay aside our own partisan tendencies and our own adversarial dispositions. This motion recognizes our partisan and adversarial natures and attempts to mitigate them using a model along the lines of the Public Accounts Committee, which is arguably the least partisan of all committees. It places deliberations and reports ahead of votes. The caucuses will also have to do their part as well. For the committee to be effective, they must choose their members wisely and select members who are not only knowledgeable of our history, but attentive to hearing the other side. This motion must be an expression of the members of the House. It however, cannot be realized without further actions by the government, where the motion can be amended and improved upon. Speaker, my question today for everybody in this House is, shall we raise the expectations of this House? Shall we raise the expectations of the public? Shall we move forward in an attempt to resolve this great question before us? Shall we endorse and create a standing committee on Indigenous relations as a demonstration of our genuine commitment to truth and reconciliation, or will we just leave it to others? Thank you.